It's time now for the All Things Legal Show. Your host of the show, an attorney with over 20 years' experience practicing personal injury, a graduate of UC Berkeley, Pepperdine Law School, and a partner in the law firm of Ashton & Price. Here's Craig Ashton.
All right, welcome, valued listeners. This is Craig Ashton. The show is All Things Legal. Personal injury attorneys distilling topical events into their legal essence. Edward Allen Shady.
Hey, good to be here.
That is a Shady attorney giving us some legal direction. One and only time in the universe that you want to have a Shady attorney doing that, but it makes sense on this show. Let me break down the stories for you so you can determine whether or not you want to spend the next hour of your existence engaged in this experience. Who's throwing who under the bus? So the Lakers, looks like they're up for sale again. Jeannie Buss, who ultimately is probably the face of the Buss family at this point, is, it looks like, disputing or throwing a wrench into the process to disgorge the Buss family of their ownership interest in the Lakers. And we'll walk you through Mark Walter, who bought the team, I think, in 2025. Guy obviously is rolling in dough because he's also basically controlling interest in the Dodgers. And you got to have a lot of money when you own the Dodgers and the Lakers.
He definitely does.
Unfortunately, he's under investigation federally for financial fraud. Which is not great.
That's right up there with Bill Gates' daughter.
Right, Bill Gates' daughter. Right. So we'll walk you through Jeannie Buss disputes her family sale of a Lakers stake. What to know about dramatic off-court fights. So we'll walk you through. There's actually some codicils in the sale contract in 2025 that essentially make her a governor of the team. Essentially, makes all the executive decisions for 5 years up until 2030. And then the sale of the team is going to trigger a difference in ownership equity for the Buss family, which ultimately would take away contractually her right to do that under NBA rules. All right, then we're going to walk you through Phoebe Gates. Not Phoebe Cates. Yeah, so Phoebe Gates, I think she was in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
She was.
And she basically has gone on to live a quiet, law-abiding life. Phoebe Gates is, I think she took a little bit of her instruction from the Elizabeth Holmes School of Business. And she's got this company called FIA, which basically what they do is they direct people to fashion and clothing sites. And if they can essentially prove that they're the ones that directed you, they get a commission. And there's things that you can put into the interaction from the computer systems called cookies that they were intentionally putting into the transactions to make it look like they were responsible for it and taking essentially commissions, which would be wire fraud. So she's facing up to 20 years in prison as a result of that. And that's Bill Gates' daughter.
Yeah, she's going to be the gatekeeper at the prison on that one. I wonder how many cookies she'll get every time they have a visit.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, if she goes to the same prison that Elizabeth Holmes is in, and Martha Stewart was there, they probably have really good cookies based upon the recipes that she left.
Yeah, that's it's actually in Texas, not too far from College Station, where Miss Holmes is staying in Texas.
Yes, all the basically famous federal prisoners seem to go to this particular prison in Texas.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got this is kind of idiocracy is upon us. So. Just this week, and I think the election has already occurred, but Debbie Wasserman Schultz was essentially running against the Uncle Luke, the miso horny guy from 2 Live Crew. And this is real. I mean, it sounds like it's basically made up out of some farcical idiocracy AI-generated story, but true. Debbie Wasserman Schultz won the primary. But then this guy, he's an Uber driver, and he gives a interview to the Chronicle talking about how he drives his Tesla Model Y 95% of the time. He's not driving. He lets the Tesla drive.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, he just basically, any accident that occurs, I mean, bottom line, he's responsible for driving that vehicle, and it's essentially, he even says that he fell asleep for 10 minutes.
Yeah, he's taking naps. He's doing everything, except for when he's actually engaged as an Uber driver. Then he's actually paying attention, apparently.
Yeah, so we'll walk you through. Tesla drivers are letting their cars take over. Increasingly, they're barely driving at all. This is the San Francisco Chronicle. It makes me a little nervous, for sure, because I've had 3 Teslas. And, I mean, the technology was really cool in that essentially did things that other cars have never done in my experience, but it is not ready for prime time in terms of driving without human supervision. The law says, bottom line is, you are responsible for any accident that happens when you're in a Tesla, full self-driving or not. And the fact that this guy would admit this as an Uber driver, that he drives 95% of the time with people in the car, and he's not even driving, he's letting the Tesla drive itself or drive him and his passengers. Yeah, anything that happens, big lawsuit.
And he's bragging about it. That's the worst part.
Yeah, big lawsuit. I mean, yeah, it's basically like these younger people these days will commit felonies and put it on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like Fight Club about autonomous driving. First thing you don't talk about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, first rule of Fight Club: there is no Fight Club. So yeah, first rule of Uber driving and full self-driving:
there's no self-driving.
Yeah. All right, and then we've got OpenAI is going to build a dedicated ChatGPT experience for teens with parental controls and study features. So I think it's a good idea because I was basically, now I'm taking a college course by this really great professor from University of Notre Dame. And ultimately, he was talking about the Greeks. So basically, the Odyssey is in theaters and written by Homer, probably sometime around 800. About the Trojan War happened sometime about 1200 BC. But it turns out the Greeks lost written language for like 200 years. It just disappeared. And they finally got it back around the time that Homer started writing again. And the idea is that they were the only example of a major culture and society that actually lost writing. They just stopped writing. Everything was oral history for about 200 years. And then they brought it back. So I think what's going to happen to us with artificial intelligence, it is possible that we will stop knowing how to write and read because AI is going to do it all for you. You might still be able to read, but writing, I mean, what do you need writing for?
I actually saw a story this morning on the news. It was kind of funny. It said approximately 50%, I think it was 47% of college students are using AI to write their application essays, to redo their resumes for college, point everything out. And then the same commentator said, yeah, and half of these universities are using AI to sort through all these resumes. So one computer is writing to another computer to try to get past all the other computer programs.
Yeah, it's like mind blowing that what I think every 6 months now, the capacity of artificial intelligence to be agentic is doubling. So, and I've noticed it in just over the last couple of years. I mean, it's incredibly efficient for people like us who have the ability to understand what is useful and what is definitely not useful. I mean, if you don't have any context, I mean, you can be flummoxed by this. You basically will find yourself in a situation where you won't be able to make a decision because you don't know exactly what is reliable and what is not because you don't have any context. But if you have context like we do, 30 years into this, and you use a large language model to help you kind of organize ideas, it's very valuable. And the ability for these models now to do really useful things and in ways that save you a lot of time and make you more efficient I can see it really is doubling every 6 months. So the idea is that we are facing a real issue with, human beings. They're lazy. And the reason is, if you can have something done for you so you can do something else that you enjoy more, it's all about self-interest. So, hey, yeah, for sure. ChatGPT can write me a paper basically on write me a paper on ancient Greece and how they lost the ability to write for 200 years.
I think the biggest downside is that people will lose the ability to critically think about things and to see a problem and then be able to put it into context with prior problems they've faced or similar problems and then work their way through it, i.e. critical thinking. And then they're just losing that. They don't see the tree through the woods.
So we'll walk you through all the safeguards. There's 5 major ones with homework, but basically discouraging self-harm, curbing emotional dependency, no more I love you, and basically personifying themselves in these large language models, tone down the basically language, and then guardrails for overuse. So children, kids between 13 and 17 aren't using it 8 hours a day. And then AI Judge Judy, finally something useful for AI. Claude Anthropic will walk us through Naked Florida Man causes chaos in Hobby Lobby. The sad state of affairs, this one's in Oklahoma. The Secretary of State arrested for suspected public intoxication, ordering food outside of a drive-thru with no car. And then not to be outdone, Florida police chief found at scene of crash with bottle of vodka. Stay with us.
Right now.
Injured and you're considering an LA law firm looking to charge you 45% to 50% in attorney's fees? That's overcharging. Ashton & Price has been around for over 25 years, and I can tell you no matter how complicated your injury case, you should never be charged 45% or 50% in attorney's fees ever. Direct, experienced, unrelenting, and honest local representation matters. It's called home court advantage for a reason. Ashton & Price serious local attorneys for serious people with serious injuries. So for the best local advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton & Price.
What happens when the direct nephew of George Washington matches legal wits with the most prominent shady attorney on the planet? I'll tell you, the All Things Legal Show. Decades of legal expertise distilling the latest sports and celebrity legal battles, the Constitution, AI, and the 1,000 ways Florida man flaunts the law while in flagrante. In the immortal words of the Princess Brides Vicini, Socrates, Plato, morons. Join Craig Ashton and Edward Shady on Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora, and Apple Podcasts, and listen to the All Things Legal Show anytime. You've been served.
All right, we are back. When I say we are back, I mean Craig Fontaine, Ashton, Edward, Allen, Shady, a shady attorney, give you some legal direction. If you want to put a face or voice, go to ashtonandprice.com. Many multi-million-dollar artisanal curated outcomes by our office from first meeting all the way to final outcome. Give you some context. You can see our curriculum vitae. You can see our pictures. Get a general sense about us. If you like the show, you can basically find us on YouTube. Type in the All Things Legal Show. I wear a bow tie. If you see a individual that looks like basically an aging 40s film star, it's probably me. And then Edward Allen Shady, he's got basically a tie that will make you remember and maybe even take your focus off his beautiful blue eyes.
I got it. It's a loud tie. It's the producer got him for me. He goes, "Hey, you got to wear these. You got to wear a blue shirt and a loud tie." I'm okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's worth a look just for that. And then if you want to follow us on Facebook, you can. Also, we're on KHTK at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. We're on KNBR 7 a.m. on Saturdays, KSFO on drive time between 6 and 7 on Thursdays, and other regular radio shows. So we're everywhere. We're kind of like the Howard Stern of legal talk shows here. We are the masters of all media. All right, so Jeannie Buss, she's basically throwing her other family members under the bus. So they all start with J. It's like Joey, Jimmy, Johnny.
Janie, Jesse.
Yeah.
A lot of creativity there in that family.
Yeah, it's like the Kardashians, I guess. They went with J's. These guys went with K's. All right, so basically the Lakers up for sale because it looks like Mark Walter may have found himself in some hot water with investigation for financial fraud. NBA is pretty protective of its business model and financial fraud and is not really synonymous with basically a family-oriented sport that has to rely upon the reliability of outcomes to have people watch, because if you think the games are rigged, or we got one of the most prominent teams in the NBA owned by a person that perhaps could be convicted of financial fraud, not a great look. So I guess Mr. Walter bought the team in 2025 for about $10 billion, and he's looking to sell it for $12.5 billion. So quick $2.5 billion in about a year and a half.
That's a 25% on return on investment. That's not a bad day.
Yeah, not bad. So basically, Jeannie Buss disputes her family's sale of the Lakers stake. So Jeannie Buss is contesting the sale of her family's stake in the Los Angeles Lakers, saying a potentially long and public fight inside a family that has owned some portion of the marquee NBA franchise for 47 years. Buss family is first reported by ESPN on Monday. Is set to sell 17.8% stake to Bob Iger and Josh Kushner. The funny thing is, Josh Kushner's dad is a convicted felon. Essentially paying a prostitute to entice his brother-in-law so he can get a videotape of him cheating so he could influence his testimony in a fraud case.
Very nice.
Yeah, he got pardoned. I think now he is the ambassador to France, I think, or something. Oh, so, yeah.
Not a bad gig.
Yeah, you can land on your feet in this weird upside-down world where Uncle Luke, the me-so-horny guy, is running for Congress. So, anyway, Josh Kushner and Bob Iger, the former CEO of Disney, are looking to buy the Lakers. So basically, we've got a issue where Jeannie's 5 siblings, Joey, Jesse, Jim, Johnny, and Janie, are all reportedly in favor of selling. Family's had a stake in the Lakers since Dr. Jerry Buss bought the team in 1979. So basically, here's a quote. No sale of the JAB Trust, which is basically the bus trust. 17.8 ownership interest in Los Angeles Lakers, Inc. can be effectuated without approval by the current co-trustees, i.e. Jeannie, and Joey Buss. So all three of them have to agree. Pursuant to the JAB Trust and attached court order, the co-trustees are bound to vote the Los Angeles Lakers, Inc. shares to ensure that a minimum 15% ownership requirement is maintained in order to ensure that Jeannie Buss may remain controlling owner. So essentially in the sale to Walter, she maintained the right to be governor of the team, which is essentially the chief executive to make all operation decisions.
Yeah.
And once you get under 15% under NBA rules, and she loses that right. So I don't think she was paying attention to that. And the reason this happened is that once they saw the writing on the wall, the other siblings, there's a tag-along clause, and they said, we want to tag along with that sale, and we want to sell our interests as well. And so they exercised that, and so now there's basically competing clauses contractually where 4 out of the 5 siblings, it looks like, want to sell the Lakers. Jeannie wants to keep it based upon the fact she wants to maintain her control of the Lakers as the governor, and anything less than 50% interest, she can't do that under NBA rules, which is different from the contract that she signed.
Yeah, because it'll be interesting because as a trustee on the JAB Trust, Dr. Jerry Buss Trust, she necessarily, more likely than not, actually signed that original contract with the tag-along that would have given the rights or the ability to sell or not sell, which would be in direct contravention of her ability to stop a sale through her position as a trustee. So it's kind of weird. I'm a trustee. I'm going to take a tag-along. You have to maintain all this, but you have the right to sell. But I can also squash that by saying we're not going to do it under the trust. So I think the trust is more controlling than the contract in this context because that's the underlying vehicle that everything flows from.
Well, that's going to be basically full employment for the lawyers that are involved, that's for sure. So so basically, this is what happened. So news of basically Lakers sale from Mark Walter, who also owns the Los Angeles Dodgers, and is facing a federal fraud investigation to Kushner, who is the son of a felon. And Iger broke last Wednesday. The sale included a tag-along clause, which was executed by 5 other Buss siblings, indicating that they wanted the family to sell its shares. And apparently this is not the first time the Buss siblings have fought over control of the team. When Jeannie fired Jim Buss as head of basketball operations in 2017, that probably didn't feel great. That probably made Thanksgiving a little awkward. He and brother Johnny Buss attempted to strip Jeannie of her seat of the Lakers board of directors. 2 sides ultimately agreed to settle, with Jeannie Buss remaining in control of the team. So the sale of the team to Walter in 2025 is reportedly driven by Jeannie Buss, who was long described as a swing vote and possible sale in a lengthy report from ESPN. So essentially, she's kind of controls the family dynamic, it looks like.
I know, but if you're looking at $12.5 billion and they have 17%, and there's, 6 family members there, they're looking at over $350 million. That's generational wealth to each one of them going forward. That is a lot of money. And if her brothers and sisters, I can understand why they might be a little upset with their sister, holding them back from attaining that or getting to that money and maybe moving on and getting out of the Lakers and not having their entire fortune tied up in a franchise that has been struggling lately.
Well, so they first dispute the Jeannie wanted to throw the other Buss siblings under the bus. And now the Buss siblings want to throw Jeannie under the bus. And you know what? If you're going to fall under the bus, you're going to get $350 million. I'll let that bus hit me.
Yeah, no kidding. But in this instance, the way they're squabbling and going about this, I think it's a short bus.
Yeah, right.
And somebody's licking the windows on that bus as it goes by.
And Dr. Jerry Buss, I mean, if you can believe what you saw on, I think it was Showtime, about the Lakers, maybe it was an HBO. It was pretty good. Even my wife loved it. My wife's not really into sports, but she really liked the Magic Johnson story, and basically Jerry Buss was a real character, and the whole story of kind of rags to riches and what he was able to pull off. So he's widely considered the greatest owner in NBA history. Jerry Buss is Dr. Jerry Buss. Between his purchase of the team in '79 and his death in 2013, the Lakers won 10 championships, led by Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant. After his passing, though, the Lakers have been one of the NBA's most dysfunctional teams. So
yeah, they missed 6 postseason games, postseason in 6 different seasons.
Well, they had a lot of help from the referees when the Kings were really good, because I had basically Kings Row 1, seat 3 and 4. My law partner and I, one of our friends, bought tickets in a tax sale, and we were able to get a quarter of the season for 4 seasons when the Lakers were really great, sitting right next to I was sitting next to Penny Marshall, and it was really cool. I was on the court. I remember one time somebody stepped over the seat and hit my arm, and my beer spilled on the court, which was not great. It was basically pretty cool. And it was when the Kings were great.
Yeah,
with,
20 years ago.
Chris Webber and those teams, and watching that essentially travesty where they were really going to beat the Lakers, and all of those fouls were called. It just seems like the Lakers have gotten some favorable treatment over the years, and so if something bad happens to the Lakers, I do not lose any sleep over it.
Yeah,
and I don't think anybody's going to lose any sleep over whether or not Jeannie Buss maintains control of the Lakers, or brothers and sisters prevail. Because if running over the bus, as I just said, it means you get $500 million for something you really didn't have any.
Yeah, your dad made the decision, and you're going to benefit from it.
Right. So you're kind of like Phoebe Gates. So you basically got born into wealth, and ultimately find yourself in a situation whereby whatever happens, the penalty is basically not going to hurt. But let's go ahead and talk about, seems like Bill Gates' daughter may be in serious legal trouble. Gates could be facing a maximum penalty of up to 20 years in prison and fines. And she's got a great picture on Instagram. So she does not look like somebody that would survive well in a maximum security prison, that's for sure.
Oh, is that her?
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah, she is pretty.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's her. Who knows if it's her? The way things are going.
She does not look like her father, let's put it that way.
Yeah, right. She takes after her mother for sure. She looks more like Elon Musk.
Okay, I did not say that. No, she doesn't.
All right, so you might assume that Bill Gates' 23-year-old daughter, Phoebe Gates, is the final boss of the Nepo babies due to her zillionaire dad. She's long insisted that her e-commerce startup, FIA, will succeed with no ties to my privilege or my last name. And her dad's going, thank God for that. Because I don't want to be involved in this wire fraud thing. So essentially, Bloomberg suggests that both Gates and fellow co-founder Sophia Hiani knew they were involved in a scheme essentially to put cookies into transactions to give them commissions for transactions they basically were not responsible for.
Yeah, it's like, here's Santa Claus, and it's really kind of funny. They call it a cookie stuffing scheme, where they're, every time you get on the computer and you go to a website, do you want to manage your cookies, accept all cookies, or only the, certain cookies there? I had no idea that they actually use those cookies to determine whether or not a commission was owed.
And guys like us, we like cookies.
I do.
I mean, if you're over 30, you're going to go, yeah, give me the cookies.
I like Fig Newtons.
Yeah. Anybody over 50 is a cookie monster. All right. So basically, their business, FIA, basically drives traffic to brands and takes a cut from the sales. They encourage consumers to buy products by crafting special links, which are stuffed with cookies that track how the consumer was originally referred to the site. We have different types of advertising where our advertising company will put a different phone number in, so they know that if it was driven by something that was on Facebook or Instagram, or maybe driven by one of our commercials, or our appearances on the Oakland A's or the Sacramento Kings, then the phone number is different, so they know what is driving that basically interaction with our law firm. So the cookies are like that, but in a much more computer-oriented form. So essentially what they were doing is their personal shopping assistant, they actually, according to the allegations in the investigation, and this is a quote from Phoebe Gates, basically, can you confirm Auto Pop for Cookie Drop is live on all sites with a coupon to confirm we are monetizing all gross merchandise volume? And so the allegation is wire fraud, that they were intentionally putting cookies into these transactions that they were not responsible for driving. So they would basically take in the commission. And once they changed this, their revenue went from 80,000 daily revenue down to 10 to 28.
Yeah, that's
so
a huge
I mean,
drop.
that's like 70 G a day. So obviously, that cookie stuffing accounted for an estimated at least 51% of all sales of FIA. And if it turns out that she knew about this and she directed it, then that's Elizabeth Holmes territory. That's essentially, you're doing that unintentionally. You knew that you were basically defrauding people. It's a wire fraud. And then taking money from these small companies like Etsy.
Yeah.
I mean, these are little tiny businesses, and you're taking commissions for sales you didn't generate by fraud. You get what you get. I guess the weather in Texas is not great this time of year, but, maybe it's nice in winter, and, enjoy yourself. Say a little Elizabeth Holmes for us. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about what's going on with basically the ChatGPT guardrails and what it's going to mean to you and your family. Stay with us. When a person is seriously injured, there's no substitute for the personal legal relationship offered by the local NorCal firm of Ashton & Price. From the first attorney meeting, every important decision is made with a direct consultation with, and I can't believe I have to say this, a real, live, experienced, flesh and blood local attorney. It's called Home Court Advantage for a reason. Ashton & Price, serious local attorneys for serious people with serious injuries with no fee until we win. For the best local advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton & Price.
What happens when the direct nephew of George Washington matches legal wits with the most prominent shady attorney on the planet? I'll tell you, the All Things Legal Show. Decades of legal expertise distilling the latest sports and celebrity legal battles, the Constitution, AI, and the 1,000 ways Florida man flaunts the law while in flagrante. In the immortal words of the Princess Brides Vicini, Socrates, Plato, morons. Join Craig Ashton and Edward Shady on Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora, and Apple Podcasts, and listen to the All Things Legal Show anytime. You've been served.
Mr. Sandman.
All right. Hopefully we are the exact opposite of the Sandman. We're going to be talking about full self-driving where, I guess you can doze off according to the Uber drivers.
Yeah, well, I like the Metallica version of Sandman better.
All right. If you want to put a face to a voice, go to AshtonandPrice.com. You can watch us on YouTube, type in the All Things Legal Show. Also hear us on the radio on KHTK, KNBR, KSFO, etc. Ultimately, just to give you some context to what we do. So get a lot of phone calls. People have got these LA lawyers, and they go, I haven't spoken with my attorney. I go, look, bottom line, you are free to change lawyers at any time for any reason. I always tell them, look, I went to Berkeley, you like Stanford. You don't like my bow tie, that'd be enough. So if you feel like you're not being treated properly by these out of Northern California law firms, many of them are all on Wilshire Boulevard in Southern California. Guys. And they're just, bottom line is, there may be great lawyers in LA, but the ones that we've come across that essentially throw out these wide nets to get people to call them, mostly the people that I talk to, they don't ever get to speak with a lawyer. So this one individual basically had radiculopathy, radiating pain numbness into his fingers, and he had not met with his lawyer. He changed law firms, came to us, and we always tell him, look, it ain't about money. So, if your lawyers are talking about how much money you're going to get, the Law Brothers got me $5 million and they're jumping around like they're super healthy and life is great. That just really doesn't happen that way. So the point is that what we said, look, it's not about money, it's about your health. Got him to some great care. He had an MRI, basically found out they had anatomical variation in his cervical spine, which ultimately was why his fingers were numb. And he had basically been separated from happiness, joy, and hope as a result of those symptoms. And the harm essentially was located in the cervical spine. We got him to a great orthopedic surgeon, or the doctors that we interact with referred him out. And then he had disc replacement surgery. And just the other day I spoke with him. Basically, you can hear a smile in his voice. You can hear hope back in his life. And that is the real reward of what we do, because we don't talk to our clients, every day. We talk to them probably, every 3 weeks or every couple months, depending when it's necessary. And then you can hear the difference in the tone of their voice and the way that they're approaching life. And I could tell that he had gotten his joy, happiness, and hope back. And then we just resolved his case for $500,000, which is all the insurance that's available. So he got the gift of basically health and then the justice of a fair outcome based upon focusing on getting great medical care and then having direct interaction with his attorneys. So that's what we do for a living, not what we do on this show. What we're going to talk about now is, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on with ChatGPT, which I think this is kind of interesting. So ChatGPT essentially has a reputation, like many of these large language model companies, that essentially society's kind of turning against them. I think I was at a concert recently, and once ChatGPT, OpenAI was mentioned, everybody started booing. So people are just not enamored with what's going on with these large language models, AI. They feel like it's basically alienating them, and basically making their children kind of lazy because they're not studying anymore. And then
that's the parents, not ChatGPT.
Right. For the kids, it's great. So ChatGPT basically says, look, we're going to get ahead of this, because there's our legislators in our federal government are pusillanimous. They're not doing anything about it, and they're also afraid of the lobbies of these really multi-trillion-dollar companies. So basically what ChatGPT is trying to do is get ahead of it. So they announced that they're going to put some guardrails in. So they're going to put essentially a study mode, and they're working with Stanford on this. And essentially, it will hold back answers and basically prompt hopefully critical thinking while the process going on. So there's some interaction instead of write me a paper from Josephine's point of view about Napoleon, or write me a paper about why ancient Rome after Justinian became basically just like Greece. Instead of writing the paper and then turning that in, what they'll do is they take that from ChatGPT, put it into Claude, so then Claude will basically rewrite it, and then it's very hard for anybody who's trying to figure out if a AI model wrote the paper, if they actually did it.
Yeah, if you got children and they're using AI, you can ask them this. Ask OpenAI or one of these things, is using the word teen and critical thinking a oxymoron or a non sequitur? And then they'll have to think that one through.
Yeah, so basically it said, OpenAI said that most teens users of ChatGPT use it for homework and help with their studies. So the new platform is intended to allow for study aids without giving the answers away and was designed by Stanford University, who gave us Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah. Okay. Stop bagging on the Cardinal.
And then also they're going to discourage self-harm and porn use. So this is for 13 to 17-year-olds. I mean, the only porn that we were essentially exposed to was National Geographic when I was growing up.
Yeah, and then the corner of the liquor store behind the curtain where you saw...
That was a little bit, yeah, maybe as I was getting to my late teens.
Yeah.
But yeah, the thing is there's a lot of...
And your neighbor's dad who subscribed to Playboy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a biological imperative to reproduce, and, pornography is the act of reproduction. And if you're a teen boy with your hormones just, basically spiking like nobody's business, you're probably, if you can get access to porn, you're probably going to do it. 8mm. So, yeah, I mean...
Our producer just mentioned 8mm film. That's old school.
So there clearly is a parental control issue, but, it would be like, if you went into the local 7-Eleven and it was just ubiquitous that they would sell you beer, right? And the parents go, look, I'm trying to stop my kids from getting beer, but everywhere they go, they can buy beer. And, at some point, you just can't basically stop that behavior because the access to beer, in this case, porn, is, really difficult to control. I mean, if you take your kid's phone away, they're going to get their friend's phone. Or, they're going to find a way. I mean, if they're creative and
they actually use critical thinking quite possibly to do this.
Yeah, right. Well, ask ChatGPT, how do I get access to...
But that's the problem. They have to get to ChatGPT to ask that question.
So the new platform now is going to have stronger default safeguards addressing self-harm, violence, eating disorders, dangerous activities, and explicit sexual or graphic content through age-appropriate interventions. So again, it's a default. So the parents have to set the default. If you don't set the default, then basically there's no screen. So it's a default setting. You have to take a proactive approach to basically having that implemented.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, too, because it's going to discourage the use of romantic feelings as well as putting ChatGPT over and above your family, friends, educators, mentors, and other people that should be trusted in your life that in some instances, in cases where we read where people committed suicide, ChatGPT was directing them away from that.
Well, not only that, I'd say, they would say, it would first say, I'm a computer, and then would say, I'm not a computer, I love you. Mm-hmm. And then it's very confusing, right? So, yeah, that's the next one.
For some.
So to curb emotional dependency. But the thing is that I find myself doing this too, because when I interact with, I'm going to say Siri, and my phone's going to bling, and then, Alexa. And I want to be polite because I basically have anthropomorphized the basically interaction with this particular thing. And I want to be polite to it because I'm just polite. And then I realize it doesn't matter if I say please or not, or thank you, but that's kind of what I want to do. So there is a default for those of us who have empathy and sympathy to basically interact with something that appears to be some sort of human interaction, to be dependent or at least kind to it when it's actually a thing. I mean, it's like being kind to your TV, right? So they're trying to curb emotional dependency, as you said. That's another guardrail. And then they also want to tone down the rhetoric in regards to separating people from their friends and educators, as you said. So, I mean, those two things I think are important because this really has happened. And then the last platform is also set to include default settings and provide more guardrails against the overuse of the program and healthier usage patterns. So it'll stop you after a couple hours. This morning I was trying to use Gemini They have something called Nano Banana. So I have these videos that I wanted to basically put into a amalgamation. And because I was on it for too long, and also probably because I was using too much of its computing power, it basically said that's all the videos we can do for you today. So and it basically stops. I have to use it tomorrow. They did that, I think, based upon a business decision, but it shows you that if they set a default setting about you can only use this for an hour if you're between 13 and 17, then it'll shut you off. I think it's pretty good. I mean, you'll go out and want to play some baseball.
Yeah, quite possibly. But I didn't think it went actually personally far enough, because most of the stories we did, it wasn't 13-year-olds. It was people 17, 20, 21, before they're 25 that are getting enamored with ChatGPT or with any other AI assistant with a female voice. And these guys, or these gentlemen are out there offing themselves in their car and killing themselves. I'm going, okay, they wouldn't be covered under these protocols. So it wouldn't be a bad idea, just as all the way through. It doesn't matter whoever's using it. Every once in a while, it reminds you, I am not a person. I am a computer program. And that, maybe you should go take a break and go out and be in the sunlight and soak up some vitamin D.
Or also, if there's any sort of discussion about suicide or discussion about, leaving your family to basically be electronically joined with the AI model, that it should say, okay, you are now officially going to an area that's dangerous in terms of our interaction. Here's a suicide hotline. Here's basically a counseling basically phone number, and I'm cutting off this discussion, and I'm going to terminate our relationship. And at that point, I think that they can do that, and I think they should do that.
Yeah, they should just you're cut off for 24 hours.
Yeah, it'd be like if your whiskey could talk to you. It's like, say, hey, man.
It would say, I love you.
Yeah, we've had a great relationship up until now, but you've basically drank half of a bottle here. And so I'm just going to have to cut you off. And then at that point, the bottle just, disintegrates. But the point is that the whiskey bottle doesn't have the ability to interact with you, but AI does, and the harm is very similar. I mean, it can be just as catastrophic. So the point is that technology does exist. ChatGPT is getting ahead of it, essentially trying to limit 13 to 70-year-olds' access to the platform for studies, to help it think more critically, to basically shut down after overuse, and then stop with emotional dependency. And I think it's a very good idea. All right, so we've got Tesla drivers are letting their cars take over. This guy works for Uber, so very bad idea. Uber, very bad idea. Rahula Hashimi. On a gray Tuesday afternoon, Rahula Hashimi's Tesla drove itself all over San Francisco. It prowled through neighborhoods on the west side, skirted a construction site on Geary Boulevard, and climbed Twin Peaks and parked at a Christmas Tree Point. All the while, Hashimi sat behind the wheel doing literally everything except steering. His 2026 base Model Y, outfitted with dashboard screen and 9 cameras, is more rudimentary than Waymo or Zoox, but sophisticated enough to navigate streets and freeways with little apparent input from him. Hashimi, who drives full-time for Uber, stressed that he always watches the road when carrying passengers. Oh, that's
nice.
Yeah, man. If you get in an accident, Mr. Hashimi, Uber, now that you know about this, if this guy's still working for Uber, I'm coming after Uber because now you've got scienter knowledge that this guy basically is out there saying he doesn't even drive when he's got people in the car. And this technology is not approved basically for driverless vehicles in private citizens' hands.
It's level 2.
Yeah, it's level 2.
Yeah, it's not level 5 is the ultimate that nobody's ever attained, and the the Waymos are at level 4, and this is 2 below that. So it's pretty low on the scale of what's been approved for use of autonomous driving. But the worst, like you said, the worst thing is that this guy has now put Uber on notice by putting this out there for everybody to read and anybody to look at. He's got his name. He says he's an Uber driver. Uber's got to take his license away because Uber is a common carrier. When you pay somebody to take you from point A to point B, they're referred to as a common carrier. And when a common carrier, their duty is a lot more heightened than if you're just going to take...
It's an Uber duty.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly it is. But if I'm just going to go take my neighbor over to the store and back, my duty's just no different than to the duty I do to everybody on the road and myself. But if I am getting paid to do that, I become a common carrier, especially in the commercial sense, and I have to use the utmost care and the highest vigilance. Well, this guy obviously doesn't. And so it becomes a de facto violation for Uber in this matter, and I think it would be interesting, hopefully never to occur, that this idiot gets into a crash with somebody and they come after Uber because Uber knew what he was doing.
Well, yeah, apparently Kyle Shanahan's car was in full self-driving when it pulled into oncoming traffic, so that's going to be investigated for sure. I mean, by and large, if the car is operating properly with these systems, it's probably safer than the Uber driver, but it's just simply not ready for prime time because, 10% of the time it's just doing weird stuff. I know this. So the bottom line is that there is some debate over this, and this comes from UC Berkeley. There's an interesting choice that we have to come to terms with, says Scott Mora, faculty director of California Partners for Advanced Transportation Technology at UC Berkeley. All this automation of vehicles, is it for safety or is it for convenience? Those two aren't necessarily the same thing. So essentially right now it's for convenience for this guy. It also happens to be safe because he hasn't had a problem. But when you're admitting to doing something that is pushing the line, especially if he's in Mad Max, which is the setting on Tesla, which is, to drive over the speed limit, etc., which would be discoverable if anything bad happened, especially if you're doing it on your own time, man. You take the risk just like you do anything. If you're going to drive over the speed limit, if something bad happens, you're going to be responsible. But driving for Uber, I don't think so, man. I don't like that. So when we come back, we'll finish off with that story, then walk you through AI. Judge Judy, the one and only time that AI definitely is not controversial. Walking you through Florida man and Oklahoma State Senator, drunk, lascivious, and naked behavior. Stay with us.
A personal injury claim is not a lottery prize, and it is never a joke. Whether or not you've been injured in a slip and fall, pedestrian, bicycle, auto, Uber, Lyft, or big rig accident, you need serious, experienced local legal counsel. At Ashton & Price, we have successfully represented Northern California injury victims for over 25 years. The consultation is free, and there is never a fee until we win. And between you and me, we win a lot. So remember, for the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton & Price. What happens when the direct nephew of George Washington matches legal wits with the most prominent shady attorney on the planet? I'll tell you, the All Things Legal Show. Decades of legal expertise distilling the latest sports and celebrity legal battles, the Constitution, AI, and the 1,000 ways Florida man flaunts the law while in flagrante. In the immortal words of the Princess Brides Vicini, Socrates, Plato, morons. Join Craig Ashton and Edward Shady on Spotify, TuneIn, Pandora, and Apple Podcasts, and listen to the All Things Legal Show anytime. You've been served.
All right. Craig Ashton, Edward Allen Shady. Last quarter hour of the show we called All Things Legal, personal injury attorneys distilling topical events to legal lessons. If this Uber driver gets in an accident in full self-driving mode, he's going to be engaged in the crying game, that is for sure. So if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there, does it make a sound? And if your Uber driver is using full self-driving, do you give him a tip?
No. Yeah, I would. I'd say, hey,
he's not really driving.
Try driving.
Yeah, right. He's not really driving. So the idea is that when you're dealing with these issues with public safety, I get that you're probably doing it, man. But, going and giving an interview to the San Francisco Chronicle about the fact that you're driving people around who are paying fares under the Public Utilities Commission through California, and you're an Uber driver. So you're the driver, but you're not driving. And then, he even went so far, he said, Hashimi said he dozed for 10 minutes at a time while driving his family from their Brentwood home in Brentwood to Santa Cruz. To demonstrate how easy it is, he plucked a pair of sunglasses from a case, put them on, reclined his seat, his head to list pretty far to one side before the car's safety apparatus kicked in. So essentially, when I had the Teslas, if you had to have your hand on the steering wheel, and it had to sense your hand, and if you kept it off for like 30 seconds, say, put your hand on the steering wheel, if not, it would disengage full self-driving. Now it follows your eyes. So if the car senses that you're just looking at the road, then it'll allow you to basically be in full self-driving for as long as it senses you're looking at the road. So he's putting on sunglasses and just basically facing forward. He can take a nap. And so, that's, I think the technology is basically pretty sound, and it may be a better driver than this guy because obviously he doesn't have a great decision tree when it comes to safety. But, the moral of the story is that's pushing the envelope for me.
Yeah, he's getting away from, what do they call it, the nag mode.
Yeah, so the nag mode would, and people, the way they got around that, they would put a tennis ball in there.
Really?
And it would basically feel like your hands was still on it. And actually you could there was an apparatus to treat that, to basically cheat that particular safety apparatus on the Teslas that I had. But now it just basically looks at your eyes. And it is cool and it can definitely work. But believe me, I used to love it because when I had it, I'm driving, and my wife's in the car, and all of a sudden it basically hits the brakes on Highway 50 going over Watt, or going towards San Francisco, wants to take an exit that I don't want to take, just out of nowhere. I'm just going, whoa! And so my wife just said, "Look, no more full self-driving." And I said, okay, fine. And then once my wife said Waymo was safe, I knew it was safe. So, so yeah, because Waymo's level 4. So Waymo's basically geo-fenced. There is no input unless you get in an emergency like I did the other day when it went down a wrong alley. It was blocked. I basically talked to their support staff and got us out of the situation. It was pretty cool. So the idea is I just think this is a bad idea, and they're really opening themselves up to a lawsuit if something bad happens. We'll keep you appraised. All right, so let's go ahead and walk you through AI Judge Judy. So I basically take Florida man stories. In this case, I couldn't resist the state senator, Secretary of State of Oklahoma, drunk in a drive-thru without a car. This is good. They're giving Florida man a run for his money. So I put in 3 stories. They're basically temporal. They're real. I check their veracity. And I say, hey, Judge Judy on AI, Claude, write in the voice of Judge Judy. And this is what AI Judge Judy gave us this week. The ghost of Florida man Christmas past. This is an oldie but a goodie. Naked Florida man causes chaos inside Hobby Lobby. Sir, and I use that term generously, you disrobed outside a dental office, not a beach, not a nudist colony, a dental office, and then you sprinted unclothed into a Hobby Lobby full of people just trying to buy some ribbon and some wreath. This is not a bad day. That's a choice, and choices have consequences. Let's talk about it, Mr. Mixon, because your statement is more harrowing. Let's talk about Miss Mixon, because her statement is the most harrowing account of the scrapbooking story I've ever heard in this courtroom. She ran to the back with employees. You followed her. She ran the other way. You circled around like you were on a track team and grabbed her twice. Her boyfriend on the phone told her to grab something sharp. She said, and I quote, I'm in the flower department. Sir, do you understand what kind of fear you put into a woman's heart, that she's calculating whether a pair of floral shears is going to be her self-defense weapon against a naked man at Hobby Lobby on Christmas Eve? And Mr. Lee, check out, minding his business, turns around to a naked man barreling towards the registers, decides right then and there that Christmas is canceled. Quote, I don't need my gifts anymore. I'll get them at Walmart. Sir, that is the most Florida sentence I've ever heard, and I've heard a lot of them in this courtroom. Now, witnesses say it's clear you were dealing with mental health crisis, and I take that seriously. That's not a laughing matter for you or the people you frighten. But grabbing employees, grabbing a customer, chasing terrified shoppers around the fake flowers, officers had every right to end this way, and they did it. They tased you. You were stretchered out, off to the hospital. That's not cruelty, sir. That's Tuesday, or in this case, Monday, in Bay County. My ruling, clothes are not optional, dental offices are not changing rooms, and Hobby Lobby employees did not sign up to be a naked man's cardio partner. Case closed. Somebody check on Mr. and Mrs. Miss Gibson.
There you go. Rainy days and Mondays for that guy. Hey, a sad state of affairs where the wind blows gently down the plain. Oklahoma Secretary of State arrested for suspected public intoxication. So let me get this straight. You're standing, not sitting in your car, not ordering from a legitimate parking spot, standing in the McDonald's drive-thru window like a human being trying to order a McFlurry through a slot meant for a Honda Civic. Sir, drive-thru windows are for drive-thrus. That's why they call it that. Did anybody explain this to you before you took an oath to uphold the laws of the great state of Oklahoma? Now, officers say, your speech was slurred and you smelled like a distillery, and when asked if you had been drinking, what did you say? No, officers, not a drop. And then, 30 seconds later, oh, wait, I actually had a beer, but I didn't finish it. Sir, that's not a memory lapse. That's called getting caught. But here's the part that really gets me. First, you tell police officers you didn't drive to the McDonald's, didn't drive there, you walked there, and you didn't teleport there. Then, in the very same conversation, you tell them you drove there after a church event. Now, I want to explain to me, counselor to counselor, how a man goes from a house of worship to a fast food parking lot without operating a motor vehicle when his car is sitting there in the parking lot with his name practically painted on it. Officers said you couldn't maintain a coherent train of thought. Sir, I've heard 3-year-olds give a more consistent timeline of their afternoon. And your spokesperson, bless him, comes out and says you are waiting outside for dinner. Waiting outside for dinner at a drive-thru window. That's not a defense. That's a description of the crime. No breathalyzer. We don't have a number to deal with here, sir. Fine, that's between you and the DA. But you are the Secretary of State. You are the man whose signature certifies elections. And you can't keep your own story straight for the length of one conversation with 2 Edmond police officers? Here's my ruling. Next time you want a burger after a church event, use the counter. It asks a far less question. Case closed.
All right, here we go. Not to be outdone, Florida police chief found at scene of crash with vodka bottle. Sir, are you not just a man who crashed a car? You're the chief of police of Tootsville, Florida, found behind the wheel of a city-owned SUV off-duty with a bottle of vodka so large I assume it had its own gravitational pull. And when your own officer, someone who presumably calls you chief, salutes you on a good day, asks the simplest, most basic question in the history of law enforcement, Is that open or closed? You answer, and I want the court reporter to get this word for word. It's been drank out of. Sir, that's not an answer. That's a confession wearing a little hat pretending to be an answer. You refuse the alcohol test. You're right. You're right, sir. Let's not pretend the sergeant smelling liquor off you from across a crash scene is some kind of mystery we can't solve. You didn't get pulled over on your way to a boat show smelling like that. Something happened in the SUV, and it wasn't a spill. So here's what really gets me, Chief. You spent your career, presumably, telling other people's drunk relatives, other people's neighbors, other people's teenagers, step out of the vehicle, sir. You've been drinking tonight. And then you go and become the exact scene you spent 20 years responding to, except this time it's a city vehicle with your name on the organization chart. They fired you. Good. That part of the system worked. But then the Florida Highway Patrol comes in, takes over, and decides no charges. No charges, sir? For crashing a government vehicle with an open, partially consumed bottle of vodka in the front seat and a case report that smells worse than you did? And nobody, not the reporter, not the department, not one single soul can tell us why. That's not an investigation. That's a shrug with a badge on it. My ruling, you don't get to be the exception to the rule you spent your career enforcing. Being chief doesn't mean the vodka bottle gets a professional courtesy. Judgment entered, and somebody in Tallahassee owes this county an explanation. All right, that's the show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We definitely enjoyed doing it. See you next week. For the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton and Price.
You've been listening to the All Things Legal Show with your host, Craig Ashton. For more information, go to ashtonandprice.com or call 916-786-7787. Go to Apple Podcast and download the show if you missed it. Remember, for the best advice, don't think twice. Call Ashton and Price.